And one of the most intriguing villains in the history of the show has only ever been used once. With so much untapped potential, it's honestly hard to believe. But that's the BBC for you. They really do have a knack for disregarding great ideas or, pissing off the writers behind them. Look no further than Robert Stewart Banks for proof. But that's a subject for another day. Quite frankly, that's where today's subject comes in. And obviously, the issue is a big one. As always, it boils down to marketing and the usual corporate nonsense. It's a pity, really, because the Dominators were obviously slated for a second story that we will never see. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Daemon, and today we're diving into the Dominators, a villainous group that deserved so much more than their single dusty outing. The Dominators were the male half of a humanoid race from the planet Drahb, a gang of conquerors claiming control over much of the Ten Galaxies. These guys were utilitarian to the extreme, obsessed with conserving energy and minimizing waste. Their robotic slaves, the Quarks, were a key part of their arsenal, adaptable, lethal, and mercilessly efficient. Their ruthless pragmatism extended to enslaving weaker species and deploying the Quarks as foot soldiers to expand their cold empire. Biologically, the Dominators were towering, pale-skinned, monogendered creatures enhanced through brutal self-experimentation. They abandoned sexual reproduction, sustained themselves on radiation instead of food, and extended their lifespans far beyond human norms. Their cold and calculated nature extended even to how they managed their hierarchy. Strict discipline, ruthless elimination of weak leaders, and a culture where wasting energy was a capital offense. Their technology was equally unsettling. Saucer-shaped ships powered by negative mass flux absorption, turning radiation into propulsion. The Quarks themselves were marvels of brutal engineering. Cuboid bodies with spired, spherical heads designed to conserve energy and, honestly, pretty deadly in high-power mode. Dominator intelligence tests, shocking trials to assess slaves and threats, highlight their ruthless and cold-blooded approach to conquest. Historically, the Dominators rose from primitive tribal warriors on Drahb, but after revolting against the planet's female rulers, they embraced technology and conquest with, grim zeal. They spread through galaxies, enslaving entire species, always chasing the next source of power to fuel their ever-expanding empire. Their attacks on Earth were foiled by the Doctor and his allies, yet the menace never quite vanished. So here's the thing. After the incident on Dulkis, the planet where the Dominators intended to seed destruction for energy, the Doctor and his companions left the Dominator fleet en route to refuel. The Doctor, caught up in subsequent adventures involving the land of fiction and battles beyond this universe, never got the chance to follow up. But imagine if a modern Doctor actually decided to finish what he started. The TARDIS materialized quietly in the shadow of a battered world. Its usual hum dampened by the stillness of the dead air. The Doctor stepped out alone once again, his coat whispering across the cracked ash-grey soil beneath his boots. The sky hung low, a muted canvas of smoky hues, streaked with faint traces of radiation that shimmered faintly in the dull light. The scars of old devastation stretched endlessly around him, a silent testament to the calamity left behind by the Dominator's greed. This was Dulkis, a planet that once thrived with life, now reduced to a fragile husk by the cold, relentless hands of conquest and technology. The Doctor's mind stirred with memories, echoes of a younger time, bright companions named Zoe and Jamie, and promises made long ago. Those faces haunted him. He had left them behind, exiled and alone, unable or unwilling to return. The weight of that abandonment settled deep within him, as tangible as the dust swirling across the barren landscape. Ahead, the remnants of Dulcian settlements lingered like ghost survivors clinging to the fragile hope that the horrors of the past would not return. They regarded the Doctor with wary eyes, a stranger, unfamiliar yet bearing the weight of prophecy. Convincing them he was the same man who had warned them before would be no easy task. The years had changed him, and time had a way of eroding trust as surely as it erodes stone. Yet beneath their suspicion, a flicker of fear gnawed at the Dulcians' hearts, a fear not born from the Doctor but from the impending doom they all sensed. Far above, deep in the void, the Dominator fleet stirred with dark intent. Their advance forces, led by the cold and calculating commanders Toba and Raaga, had failed in their mission to secure the vital energy reserves needed to fuel the Empire's endless hunger. The failure was unacceptable, an affront to their precision and control. In retaliation, the Dominator High Command dispatched a new weapon to Dulkis, a Quark unlike any the Doctor had faced before. The familiar servitors, once crude and multipurpose, were replaced by this singular instrument of devastation. Designed for one purpose alone, subjugation and annihilation, it was a towering machine of polished metal and sinister intent. Its movements were fluid and brutal, its weapons calibrated for maximum efficiency. Unlike its predecessors, this Quark answered only to the fleet commander, embodying the cold, ruthless will of the Dominators themselves. As the mechanical menace descended upon the Dulcian Survivors, the Doctor's eyes narrowed. Years of experience and instinct guided him forward. The key lay in understanding the machine, its design, its limitations, its vulnerabilities. He moved through the ruins with quiet purpose, avoiding detection as he examined the Quark's systems from a distance. Its energy core pulsed with a steady, harsh rhythm, the heart of its destructive will. The Doctor's fingers brushed against exposed conduits and circuits, tracing the flow of power and data. A delicate operation began, the disabling of its hostile programming. With a surgeon's precision, the Doctor unraveled layers of code, dismantling the commands that dictated death and obedience. The machine's cold gaze flickered, its weapon systems hesitated, and the rigid lines of its motions softened. But the Doctor was not finished. In the quiet hum of the TARDIS console, he rewrote its core directives. The Quark was no longer a weapon of destruction, it was to become a guardian, a protector of the Dulcian people who had endured so much. Its metal frame now shielded the vulnerable, its formidable strength repurposed to defend rather than destroy. The skies above darkened as the full Dominator fleet approached, massive warships blotting out stars with their cold silhouettes. The planet held its breath, caught between hope and despair. With the reprogrammed Quark at his side, the Doctor prepared for the inevitable confrontation. He coordinated the Dulcians' defenses, using every scrap of knowledge he possessed about Dominator tactics and technology. The battle was swift and brutal, a clash of wills and machines. The Dominator fleet unleashed torrents of energy, their weapons carving deep scars into the planet's surface. But the Doctor's strategy was relentless. By targeting the negative mass flux absorption systems that powered their ships, he threw their forces into chaos. In the shadows of ruined cities and molten rivers, the Doctor led a daring assault to cripple the flagship's reactors. The operation was perilous, the margin for error razor-thin, but it succeeded. The flagship faltered, and the fleet was forced into a hasty, disorganized retreat. As silence reclaimed the battlefield, the Doctor stood alone amid the ruin and smoke, the weight of victory tempered by the knowledge of cost. The Dulcians would rebuild slowly, painfully, and the Doctor, haunted by his past failures and exile, resolved that this time he would not turn away. This time he would remain. The TARDIS waited silently, its doors opened to a future filled with uncertainty and hope. This story could explore themes of unfinished business, the weight of memory, and the complexity of choices made long ago. The Doctor would have to balance trust and skepticism, past and present, all while racing to stop the Dominators before they finish what they started. It's honestly frustrating how the BBC has squandered such a rich villain and a story that's just, absolutely ripe for expansion. Instead, they seem to prefer focusing on flashier, more marketable foes rather than these quietly menacing conquerors. The Dominators were a subtle, cold threat, and revisiting them could really bring a much-needed depth and, a bit of darkness to the show's villain roster. If only the powers that be cared to take the risk. So here's hoping that one day a future Doctor actually picks up this thread. Until then, we're left with the crumbs of what could have been yet another classic villain left to gather dust in the BBC archives. And if you think that's just how the corporation likes it, well, you're not wrong. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.